Good evening. The college has returned from spring break, and we want to welcome you to Inside Government, a program put together by KU Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Last week, KU County Sheriff David Gould made it official. He is not seeking a fourth term. Elected in 2006 on the Democratic ticket to become sheriff, he ran in 2010 and 2014 without opposition, receiving both the Democratic and Republican Party endorsements as well as several other endorsements as well. He did not have an opponent the last two times, and it was not expected that he would have one this year. With that, we've asked the sheriff to come on to talk about his decision, his future plans, as well as to talk about a couple of other issues, including gun access and violence in the wake of the Parkland school shootings that occurred almost 60 days ago, and Albany's efforts to enforce the SAFE Act, which some might consider an unfunded mandate on localities like KU County. Sheriff, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Guy.
I
love when you do that introduction.
Well, it's a delight to have you. I think it's kind of appropriate. You came on the last two times to announce you were running. I know you made the announcement last week that you're not seeking another term. Why?
You know, there's not one specific reason, Guy. I think it's just like when I was in the service, just like when I was in the state police. I think you know when you're ready. You really do. I made the decision almost 100% a couple months ago, and my daughter came home over Easter from New York City, so I wanted to sit down and talk with her and Sue, my wife, and make the decision together, not on the phone, not on an email, but in person.
So you've been contemplating this for some time?
Yeah, not an awful long time, since the beginning of the first of the year, probably, not just a few months. But
was it a hard decision?
Oh yeah, it's I can never say it's the hardest decision you ever make in your life because people use that's an overused phrase, but it was a very hard decision. It really was.
So I'm going to ask you an odd question in this sense. There are ads that are run by Auburn Community Hospital where you talk about a health scare.
Yes.
2 years ago? 3 years ago?
That was actually probably closer to 4.
4 years ago. I'm assuming this was not for a health reason.
No, it's people out there.
And you and I we've had this conversation off
exactly.
camera.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that you're in that ad is you are on the ACH board, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am.
And you were supporting the hospital in their ad campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to get into the politics of this already, Lieutenant Brian Schenck has announced that he's running.
Yes, he is.
Are you endorsing him?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you know at this point, is there anybody else running?
I thought maybe if the Democrat Party was going to put up somebody, once I announced at the beginning of last week that they might have, announced that they were going to support somebody. It hasn't happened yet. As we all know, it's not too late. I mean, they've got a few more months if they want to do it. But I am hearing nothing right now. The only one I'm hearing that's gone through the board of election and filed their papers is Brian Schenck. So
what's been the best part of being sheriff?
Just dealing with the public. I've always been a public and outgoing guy. I did a lot of this stuff in the state police as a senior investigator. So I dealt with the media. I dealt with the public on my committees, making speeches. I truly, truly enjoy that part. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to live the rest of my life in Central New York, in Auburn, and Cayuga County. But I will miss that part of being, a police officer and being able to make speeches, whether it be in front of classes, high school, college.
But you've been a community cheerleader. You serve on 1,008 boards. Am I correct on that?
Well, at one time it was 37. I've timed off a couple of boards and got on some new ones.
But you've served on everything from those that are government-oriented to the Gavra Center, the United Way, Head Start. I can list them all. Maybe I can't list them all, but I was trying to count last night. I thought I was up to about 22.
Yeah, I'm on actually a little bit more than that right now, but at the max it was 37, and I'll stay on all those that I can without having the title of sheriff because I enjoy it, and most of them are nonprofit, and they help the community from children to adults and to the elderly, everything in between. Anybody that needs help in this community, we have a committee for it.
But in many of those cases, you've been a community cheerleader. When you say you give speeches, it's not about law enforcement level.
Oh, no, it's
about the general concept of
those different committees and boards, yes.
You headed the United Way campaign 5 years ago?
Myself and Sue in 2011.
11, okay. More than that, 7 years ago.
Yeah, 7.
So with this, you retired from the New York State Troopers, and then you soon found yourself running for KU County Sheriff. So I do not see you as a shy and retiring person. Well, I know you're not a shy person. So I don't see you as a retiring person. What do you think you're going to do after January 31st?
At January 1st, after December 31st.
December 31st,
yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
But no, that's all right. But, you know, I keep telling people I'm not done, just like at a legislative meeting last night. I think Tim says, congratulations, you know, you're retiring. I said, I got 9 more months. Do it in December. I don't think it's really sunk in yet, Guy. You know, I know 9 months will go quickly, but I still have 9 more months to be the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of Cayuga County, and I'm looking forward to those 9 months. So I don't know what I'll do.
So before he was elected to the office, you were, several people asked you to run for the congressional seat.
Yes.
That I think Dan Maffei had at that time.
Yes.
This was before John Katko was even on, I think, on the horizon.
Yep.
To seek a congressional seat. Do you think you'll ever seek elected office again?
I'm not sure. When Senator Nozzolio retired, there was a couple senators that called and asked the same thing if I would consider running for that position.
Oh, Senator, one of your former colleagues, Senator Gallivan, is a
he
worked
with me in the state police.
State police. So, and he was a county sheriff, if I remember
Yes,
correctly.
he
At
was.
one point. If a seat on the legislature, state legislature. I'm not sure you want to go to the county legislature.
I don't know. If the state capital was in Syracuse, or the national capital was in Syracuse, I probably would have considered one of those positions. But I'm not going to be going to Albany 4 days a week, and I'm certainly not going to go to Washington 4 days a week. I want to be home with my family and the rest of the people that I love in this community.
So it doesn't mean that Albany hasn't come to you.
Well, they have, and that's an honor, and I appreciate that. And it was just the wrong timing. A few years back, I probably would have considered and maybe done it. But you know, the legislature, sure, I would love to be a member of the Cayuga County Legislature. I've thought about that for a lot of years now. I've sat in that office or that 6th floor for 12 years. You know, at least 3 or 4 times a month. Every meeting they have, I go to, and I
Well,
really.
it wouldn't be unknown. Elaine Daly left as a department head.
And Elaine is going to make a great legislator. She really is. She's a tremendous friend, and I think she'll make a great legislator.
So I do want to talk about Albany for just a second, because one of the frustrating things, and I can say this because I saw you in a television interview about it, was the SAFE Act and some items that were required, I think, at the end of January. Am I correct?
January, yes.
So New York State 5 years ago passed the SAFE Act. There were some handgun requirements by the end of January
of 2018.
What were those requirements?
You have to re-register, refile your registration.
And this is assuming you registered in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a question in itself.
True. If you had a pistol permit 30 years ago, 50 years ago, or 5 years ago, you have to re-register, recertify your registration every 5 years now. So it depends on what it is. But the first
Any idea how many that is in Cayuga County?
Yes. Our total is over 12,000 that have pistol permits, and I believe at the time it was 2,100 at the end of January that were re-registered. So there was
at 18%.
Yeah, it was 18 or 19%.
So
and that was the state average.
So if you don't comply, what happens?
If you don't comply, you're in violation of the law.
And what can happen to you?
We've asked all the sheriffs in the state, and certainly the DA's offices together, have asked for an extension from the governor's office.
Have you gotten that?
Nothing yet. Nothing in writing yet. But I know, and I am only going to speak for the Sheriff's Department in Cayuga County, we are not going to go arrest somebody after January 31st because they have not registered. I don't think it was brought together right. I don't think it was put together right. I don't think it was put to the public right. And we are certainly going to give our people time to find out that they really need to do this. We have people all over the country and all over the world that don't even know about this law.
So when you say it wasn't well thought, are you talking about the overall?
Oh, absolutely. The overall law and the recertification.
And the research. And just out of curiosity, I do not own a pistol, so I'm not one of those. What do I have? If I owned a pistol, what would I have to do?
You have to go online to the New York State Police, go online, and then there'll be a position, whatever you want to call it, online for a pistol permit recertification. And that's the only way you can do it. You can't do it in writing. You can't send a letter. You have to go on New York State Police website, scroll down to recertification, pistol recertification, and you have to do it online. It's very easy.
It is.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of people who don't use the internet.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of elderly people that don't have a computer, but this is the only way you can do it. I've had so many calls of friends that are older and younger. What do I need to do? And I tell them, and they say, well, I don't have a computer. What do I do?
So do you have them come to the Sheriff's Department and help them fill it out? Not you personally?
We've done that. Yeah,
Okay.
through John Leach, our pistol permit section commander. Certainly we've done that. But they can go to they can go to a relative, to anything else. As long as they can get online, they can go to the library and get online and do it.
So I was interested, I thought you just said 12,000 permits.
Over 12,000 pistol permits in Cuyahoga County.
Is that a high number for a county of this size?
Yeah, I think it is. And it's increased. When I got to be sheriff in January 2007, it was much less. It was, I think, 7,000 or 8,000. Every week, I'm signing so many pistol permits and then send them to.
Well, I just got asked to be a witness to
for
be
one
a reference.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they want me as a reference, but
I'll see your name then.
No, but I have. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had several people where before that, I had nobody.
It's unbelievable since I took office how many people are getting pistol permits.
Reason why? In your view?
Yeah, I believe when, especially 2 years ago when the national election was up and they didn't know if President Trump or Hillary was going to win. I think they were worried about the Second Amendment if Hillary would have got elected.
Okay.
And we had an unbelievable increase of people applying at that time. And the biggest thing is, when I got there, it was like 10% females that were applying. And we're up to 40% now of females that are applying. It's unbelievable how many ladies are getting permits.
And do you have the resources for this?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we do. John Leach handles it all. He does an outstanding job. But we do have the resources, and we will keep, I'll keep signing them. I'll keep sending them to the judge if they pass, and they have to pass a course. There's a lot to it.
Right.
And send in references. We have to do a background. We have to do a mental health background, a police background. Check. So there is quite a bit to it, but it's all worth it when it's done, and you'll have a pistol permit.
So that kind of veers into Parkland.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been about 60 days. Nationally, in regards to gun control, what do we do? Whether it's gun control or school safety, what do we need to still do?
There is some work. There's two parts to this, Guy. I've always said that there is some work to do with gun control. I am certainly an opponent of the Second Amendment. I will never, as long as I'm alive.
A proponent.
A proponent.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Of the Second Amendment, I will.
You're not
never,
running for re-election, so they won't use that sound. They won't use that sound clip.
I hope not. But there does need to be more background checks. Absolutely. There needs to be mental health checks. I've said for 20, 30 years now as an officer, a police officer, we need to do mental health background checks for people getting pistol permits. And as far as I'm concerned, long rifles. But we need to do it especially for pistol permits. There's so many mental illnesses out there.
So from your perspective, is it both an gun access issue and a mental health issue?
Yes, it is. But I feel it's much more a mental health issue than an access to gun issue.
So what steps would you take in regards, you have, I would say more than a dozen, most likely dozens of schools in your jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. What steps do we need to do to protect schools?
Well, I'm totally in favor of having a resource officer, whether it be a police resource officer, school resource officer, whether it be a active policeman or retired policeman. I am totally against any teachers having weapons in the schools. I'm against it. I'm only one person, but that's my opinion.
I was going to ask you about that as to whether teachers should be armed.
I don't feel that teachers, that's not their job. That's not their occupation, and I don't think they want to be. But I feel we should have a school resource officer, not only in every district, every building of those districts.
So Auburn has all but the elementary school, there's a rotator.
They have 4 SROs right now.
They had 4 SROs. So are there any other SROs in Cuyahoga County schools now?
Yes, we have a deputy that's in BOCES, full-time BOCES, yep.
Okay, but that leaves all the other...
but some of those schools do have school resource officers.
They do?
Yes, where Byron has them. I've actually got a call from some of the other schools. I won't mention who because I've got to go talk to some of the boards of education, give them facts, give them figures, and I believe hopefully all the schools in our district will have at least one SRO. I'm hoping.
Now I know we mentioned Senator Gallivan. He had proposed originally that money be given to every school for SRO. That did not make it into the budget in the end.
It's a shame, but it didn't.
So is this a state issue or a local issue?
Well,
when it comes to funding?
Funding, it should be a state issue.
Okay.
I mean, the state gives money, other fundings to schools. Why not this? And this is not that expensive. I mean, it's millions of dollars, but compared to 146 billion, this is not that expensive. But I think the school districts now are coming up with ways to try to fund them. I think they've learned from the past that we really need an officer in these schools. We need it for protection.
So did you say Port Byron has one?
Port Byron has
an
one.
SRO.
Has an SRO, retired trooper.
So in that particular case, how would you help that district if they wanted to do a lockdown drill or an active shooter? Auburn, and I believe your office was part of this 2 months ago. There was an active shooter drill at Auburn High School. School was out, and they did that. How would you help a district that has an SRO?
Every 2 or 3 times a year, every school in our county, every school district in our county, us and the state police outside the city, us and the state police have practices.
So you still, whether they have an SRO,
Absolutely.
you're still doing
We're still doing
lockdown
drills.
How about active shooter?
We're doing that too.
And you mentioned that you had in Port Byron, it's a former sheriff, or excuse me, former trooper. There's been this question about whether they should be police officers, retired corrections officers, former military personnel. Who do you think is qualified? Who do you think is not qualified?
Well, I think it should be either an active police officer or a retired police officer. Okay. They have the training, they have the experience. As far as peace officers, being retired correction officers, that's fine. They're great people, but they don't have that road experience. So I feel that it either should be a current police officer, whether it be state police, sheriff's department, or retired police officers. Now, Southern Cuga has a retired deputy that is there too as an SRO.
So it most likely will not occur before December 31st.
No, I believe some of them I've talked to every district superintendent.
So you think that?
I think there's going to be a lot of new SROs starting in the school budget
in the fall. So let's talk about guns in general. Are they too accessible?
Are you talking long rifles or pistols, or doesn't it matter?
Doesn't matter.
No, I don't. I don't
both.
believe they're too accessible. I've always said as a police officer, the good guys have to do it legally. The people that do get their pistol permits and everything else that follow the law, it is not that easy. It is for long rifles, but not for pistols. The bad people, the bad guys, they don't have rules. They don't follow rules. They don't care about rules. If they want a gun, they'll break into a home and steal a gun. And that's where a lot of our weapons are coming from. They're not legally obtained by the bad guys. They're proceeds of larceny or burglary.
So with the exception, I know there's been some really horrible domestic violence pieces with guns. Has Cuyahoga County largely been unscathed by gun-related violence?
We've had a few over the last, 10, 20 years. We've had a couple of homicides that occurred with a weapon, but some of them have been other weapons, naturally.
But I can go a county over, where this show runs into Onondaga County, and I can go into the southwest side of the city of Syracuse, and it's a weekly, if not daily,
that is
occurrence.
A daily thing.
Is it just we've been lucky?
No, something, I think we've done so much in this community as far as our domestic violence committee, our child abuse committee, and our education. I really think we've done more in our community, in our county, than any other county, and that's not cutting other counties down. But we're small enough, we're big enough that we can do it, we're small enough that we can do it. I really think our education and the training that we've had in the schools and in the public through our committees has really helped.
And it should be said, and I know you have talked about where you've given speeches, you have domestic violence when you have been involved in a not-for-profit that deals with that, you have made sure that they are talking about that publicly. Not,
all the time.
That's something, I don't want to say you're a cheerleader. You're a cheerleader for people understanding the issue.
Absolutely. Tomorrow at 5:30, we've got Take Back the Night. Once a year, it's a domestic violence initiative where we get the word out. And
marching downtown Auburn.
Marching downtown Auburn. We're going to be meeting at 5:30 at the City Hall. Everybody and that's listening and watching this, please come out and support. It's all about getting the domestic violence issue out there, and there's speakers. I'll be speaking, the DA will be speaking, and it's really an informative thing that we do every year. It's a march and speeches.
So can I go back to mental health for just a second?
Absolutely.
Often it comes out to whether people understand it's a mental health issue. That's one item. The other one is, do we have the money to deal with it?
So it always comes back to
money.
Well,
it's Bomber's Law. There's a
no,
there's a
it
book
does.
by Jack V. Heavy. It's Bomber's Law. It's always about the money. Do we put the resources into that area? Do we put them in there because do we not put it in there because we don't understand the issue, or because we just don't have the money?
I believe it's the second. You know, when we had the Willards of this country, or this community, this state.
Willard Psychiatric. For those of us,
Yeah,
those
Willard,
who are
exactly the
younger than 40.
Exactly. When we had those places, and I worked over there as a trooper in Willard. I was in charge of the Romulus Station. We worked with the Willard police all the time. Those closed because people had the theory that they want to have people with mental illness home with their families, and they thought it would be better therapy. Well, it was meant well, but there's some people that just, as an outpatient, and that's all we have now around here is outpatient. It just is not for everyone. I'd love to have everybody be home with their families.
Beds when you do need a bed.
Absolutely. I mean, we need to understand that a lot of our problems have to go back to that mental illness, and we really need to know that there is a problem.
And I want to ask a little bit more about schools, and since Parkland, there's been a lot of stories. There has been stories about parents buying backpacks with shields that you can buy online or in stores. Are they a good idea?
See-through backpacks are probably a great idea for schools.
I believe in Parkland
that's what they are buying.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly. They're required to be able to see through the SROs and be able to see through the teachers, whoever it may be. I don't see a problem with that. As far as, again, I'm going back to arming our teachers and stuff. Maybe it's fine in other states. Texas, somewhere where a lot of people know firearms and are proficient in it. I just don't believe that our teachers want to be armed. They're there to educate, not to protect. That is our job as police officers. So I think there's ways. There's a lot of people have talked about entrance, having certain things at the entrance.
Have you heard about everything from metal detectors? Are they? Yeah. I mean, that's a major expense. For
and I would hate to go to that. People think SROs, it's armed schools now. That's not. SROs are like big brothers. They're really the students love our SROs. The teachers love our SROs. If it comes to someday that we have to have metal detectors, so be it. But I don't believe it's there now.
There are some schools that are investing in buying these shelter-in-place rooms. I'm assuming we don't have those necessarily here.
We don't have them here.
You think those are an eventuality?
I'm hoping not. I'm hoping we can, try to work on our mental health issues. And I really believe that, and I don't have the stats for this, somebody does. There's so many of these incidents that there was mental health involved. I think if we concentrate on the mental health part in our schools, whether it be starting at the younger grades and certainly through the middle schools, through the high school, and we can help these kids that really need some help, I think that'll help the whole situation.
So I don't see you as a gamer. I don't see you playing video games. Maybe it's just
never played a video game in my life. So you're absolutely right.
But the president has said he believes, I think it came across, that there's a correlation between gun violence and video games. Do you worry about that?
I don't doubt that at all. I mean, there's some professionals out there that could probably, have stats that probably prove that. But all these video games that you see, that I've seen, and not playing them, just advertisement. They're so
Grand Theft Auto. That tends to be the poster child of those. There's this perception of violence where you can shoot prostitutes to police officers. I'm not equating the same, but
no, I understand.
But you can do that. So I want to ask this. So I'm asking you all these questions. Are we in a state of fear?
No, I hope not. I know some people are, and I'm sure the people in Florida, because of that, certainly that incident, I think it's going to be 60 days actually on Thursday of this week, but I'm sure they are, and they probably, hopefully will be able to recover from it. I don't believe a village, a city, a county, or a state is in a state of fear right now unless it happens in that area. I think people should be cautious. They should know what's going on. And our biggest thing, and kids got to understand this, and so do adults, and it's been in the media for the last 5 years since all these incidents have happened. If you see something, you've got to say something. That just doesn't go for child abuse, domestic violence anymore. It goes for the schools. It's just as important, if not more.
So you see a lot of parents. What do you tell parents about school safety?
I tell them you can't be scared. It's part of our world now. We have to live with it. We have to overcome it, and we will. There's no doubt in my mind we will solve this problem. We may not be able to ever stop it, but I think we can solve our problems by making sure the schools are secure and they're safe by SROs being there. And then again, I go back out, this is my 5th time, but we go back to have some therapists and social workers to make sure that they identify people that really need to, get some therapy and some mental health.
Shifting gears totally, we've had you on in the past talking about opioids and heroin. Is the situation getting any better?
Well, I feel it's getting better. We still have a lot of deaths, but most of those deaths are because there's fentanyl added to our drugs.
So explain to people who don't understand, what is fentanyl?
It's another opioid, but it's a more or less a poison where they try to make money. The dealers try to make money by taking some of the heroin out of a drug, or it's even laced with marijuana now. They're putting it with marijuana, and they feel that they can sell it better because it's a different type high, but it's dangerous. It's a killer. Fentanyl is a killer, and that's what's killing a lot of our teenagers, our young adults now, is the fentanyl added to these drugs.
So leaving fentanyl is just part of the overall issue. What still needs to be done?
Well, I think we've done enough education. I shouldn't say it. We've done a lot of education.
Put a lot of resources there.
We have. We've talked to every school district in the county. 2 years ago, we went to every class, every school, and we had a group that taught and educated. I think the word is out there, and yet we're still getting some overdose deaths.
Are they as high as a year ago, 2 years ago? Has the rate declined?
The rate declined a couple years ago, and it increased. Compared to a couple years ago, it increased in 2017. So we're not done. We're one death is too many.
4 months of this year.
I just think that everybody's got to understand you don't know. It's been said, it's not labeled what you're getting. So you better be awful careful when you're taking this.
And so the county is looking at suing the drug manufacturers?
Yes. Many counties.
Many counties. Do you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely. 100% idea. These people mark up these drug facilities, and pharmaceutical companies are making billions of dollars. And there's no doubt that they need to be more responsible too. And it goes back to the medical community. And I think their work, they know it now. I think the medical community, through education, that knowing how much they can give for an injury, somebody has an operation, they give you oxycodone. Now there's a certain limit. Laws have changed, which has really helped. I believe, and maybe I'm being optimistic, and I want to be, I believe we are hopefully turning the corner, or at least peaking, and we can start going downhill with this opioid epidemic, because it's an epidemic, and we need to, I think we've done so much in this community, more than other communities. We really have.
You mentioned education. So I thought this was interesting. I looked at the Leadership Cougar list. Leadership Cougar list is usually an organization where people join because they want to network and they want to learn more about their community. You're in that class. First of all, why did you decide to join the class, and what are you getting out of it?
Well, I wanted to be in the class for 4 years. The time wasn't right. 1 year, Bruce Sherman and I were going to be in it together, and he got married, so we couldn't do it at the same, But I wanted to be in it for years. Marriage will do that to you. It'll get in the way. We'll do that. I just think it's an outstanding class. For people that don't know, Leadership Cougar is like business leaders and everything else. And I've lived here my whole life. I've been involved in so many things and so many committees, but you can always learn more about your community. And I'll tell you, I've been so honored to be able to do this for the last 8 months, and we got 2 more months. It's done next month. And I've learned so many new things that I thought I'd already know.
But people who take that are not fading away, is my point.
Yeah.
You're not fading away.
I'm not fading away, or I wouldn't have done this. I mean, we started in September, so I didn't know I was going to retire, but I had an inkling that I may not do it again, but I certainly didn't decide then. But I wanted to learn more about the community that I've lived in my whole life and will live in the rest of my life. And I've learned much more than I ever thought I knew. It's outstanding.
Love to have you back in before the end of the year. You said you still have 9 more months, so we'll have you back
8.5
in the fall.
I would love to come back. It's my honor. You know I love talking to you and working with you.
So our guest has been Cuyahoga County Sheriff David Gould. We want to thank him for joining us and sharing the backstory on his decision not to seek a 4th term. and we would like to have him back here before the end of the year. We'll be back in just a moment with two new Beyond the Front Page shows, very abbreviated. One is featuring the Auburn Chamber Orchestra's conductor, Steve Frankenfall, as well as board member Joseph Selzone. And then the Auburn Education Foundation's Janie Hutchinson and Bonnie Blair will be on to talk about this year's Hall of Distinction honorees that is occurring next month. On Tuesday, we'll be back with an update on this year's proposed Auburn Large School District budget with School Superintendent Jeff Parazola, as well as Business Manager Lisa Green. And then on Beyond the Front Page, we'll have a show featuring the Owasco Watershed Association's Ken Kudla and James Beckworth, as well as Testing Coordinator Julie Lockhart. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your ideas for guests or questions for our guests to Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page at cozguitho@aol.com or Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for QU Community College. We want to thank you for watching. Hope you have a good night. Stick around for just a few more minutes, but otherwise have a great tomorrow.